Hello guys and girls, so today we are going to discuss about one of the most important concepts of cardiology which always helps us to clinch to the diagnosis in all the cases, be it real life as a clinician or in exam, and that is the idea of JVP, that is jugular venous pressure. Okay, so what our plan for today is? We are going to go with the core concept. We are going to go with the core concept of JVP waveform, but at the same time, we are going to go with something which I call it as easy reproducibility, right? Which I always call it as easy reproducibility. The reason being JVP would be one of the findings in cases, right? In the cases given to you in real life or in exam, JVP would be one of the findings, so you don't have that much time. You have to answer within seconds. You have to clinch the diagnosis within seconds. So you don't have so much time to imagine the whole JVP cycle. So we are going to focus on easy reproducibility as well, apart from the core concept, right? So without further ado, let us begin with the idea of JVP. What actually JVP is? JVP is right atrial pressure. That is the right atrial pressure, right? How do you measure the right atrial pressure? How do you measure the JVP? You measure it by the pressure in internal jugular vein. What is the reason? The reason is the pressure. There are no intervening valves. Between internal jugular vein and right atrium. So to know the pressure of right atrium, we use this method of JVP to measure the pressure in right atrium. Okay? Am I making sense? Am I clear? Right? Okay. So let us begin with the idea of waveform without further ado. Right? Okay. So this what is JVP? It is the pressure in right atrium. Now imagine, forget about this waveform. We are going to simplify. We are going to deduce this waveform right away today. Right? But right now forget about this waveform. We are going to think about logical stuffs. Right? When does the pressure in the right atrium increases? When does the pressure in the right atrium increase? It is a closed chamber. Imagine a balloon. When does the pressure in a balloon rise? When you try to splash it, right? When you try to splash it, or you add more fluid in that balloon. Similar situation over here. When does the JVP rise? There are two conditions. When there is atrial contraction, whenever there is right atrial contraction, at that time JVP will rise, or when there is more fluid, that is when there is more blood. It is the condition where right atrial filling occurs in the part of cardiac cycle, when the right atrial filling occurs. So two things were deduced. When would JVP rise? When there is atrial contraction, and when there is right atrial filling occurs, right? The third special condition in this JVP waveform, we need to figure it out, is the condition where after blood goes from right atrium to right ventricle, at that moment, what happens is there is tricuspid valve bulge. So you can imagine that stuff, pressure will rise, there will be transmitted pressure over here in JVP, which you measure in internal jugular vein. So the third condition where you get an increase in JVP, is tricuspid valve bulge. So three conditions, clear? Am I making sense? Atrial contraction, tricuspid bulge, and right atrial filling. Now let us figure out together when would JVP decrease? When we discussed that when atrial contraction occurs, JVP increases. Similarly, when atrial relaxes, JVP will decrease. When atrium relaxes, JVP will decrease. Am I making sense? When atrial relaxes, JVP will decrease. And in other condition where JVP will decrease, when volume would be more, right? When volume would be less, when the amount of blood in the right atrium would be less. So when do you get that condition where JVP falls down? Is the condition where blood flows from right atrium to right ventricle. That is the passive filling of right ventricle from right atrium. Am I making sense? So these are the two conditions: atrial relaxation and passive filling of right ventricle from right atrium. Volume decreases, blood decreases in the balloon. That is the reason why you get JVP decreasing, right? So this is the core concept. Now let us figure out the JVP waveform in the heart, right? In the heart, we will figure out the whole JVP cycle. The cycle of JVP waveforms classically begins with atrial contraction. So you get this rise, you get this A wave when There is atrial contraction. As soon as atrium contracts, the blood enters in right ventricle, and then we discussed there is momentarily tricuspid valve bulge, right? You remember? There is momentarily tricuspid valve bulge. So you get this C wave. Am I making sense? So you get this C wave, right? So A wave is atrial contraction. Blood enters in the right ventricle. There is tricuspid valve bulge. So you get this C wave, right? What happens after that? The blood has entered in right ventricle. The right atrium prepares for diastole. What happens is right atrium relaxes. So jugular venous pressure will decrease. So you get this X descent. This wave. We discussed this A wave is atrial contraction, C wave is tricuspid valve bulge, and X descent. What it is? X descent is what happens is atrium relaxes. Now, what happens in the naked? What happens over here is why do we get V wave? We get V wave because after atrial relaxes, the blood flows inside. So there is right atrial filling. So why do we get the V wave? It is because of right atrial filling. And why do we get the next wave, that is Y descent after right atrial filling? There is passive filling. There is passive filling of right ventricle from right atrium. Okay, so let us quickly revise the JVP waveform. What is A? It begins by atrial contraction, blood enters in ventricles. What is C? Tricuspid bulge, right? Blood enters in right ventricle, there is tricuspid bulge, you get the C wave. What is X descent? After what is X descent? After the blood has entered in right ventricle, after the tricuspid bulge, atrial relaxes. So X descent indicates atrial relaxation. Okay, am I making sense? What is V? Is volume. So blood enters right atrium after relaxation, there is diastole. So there is right atrial filling, that indicates V. And what is Y? After right atrial filling, after contraction, and what does Y descent indicate? It indicates the passive filling, not during the contraction, indicates the passive filling of right atrium to right ventricle. Okay, so that is the idea of JVP waveform. But more importantly, today what we are going to discuss is about the easy reproducibility, right? You are given a case scenario where it has been mentioned that you get a Canon A wave, right? So immediately within no time you should deduce the differentials of that, right? So quickly we are going to discuss about easy reproducibility of JVP waveforms. Okay, so what are the positive waves? A, C and V. Remember this stuff, A, C and V, right? And what are the negative? What are the descents? There are two descents. You get X and Y, okay? A, C and V are the rises, right? And X and Y are the descent in JVP waveform. Okay, so let us discuss about easy reproducibility. What is A wave? A wave is atrial contraction. Remember it in this way. A wave is atrial contraction, right? We are making sense. What is C wave? C wave is tricuspid valve. Tricuspid valve bulge. Tricuspid valve. Remember it by CC, right? What is V wave? Is there is some difference in volume. When does it occur? What is it? Positive wave. When does volume difference occur in positive wave? It occurs during the right atrial filling. Okay. So there are three positive waves. What are the two descents? X descent. What does it indicate? It indicates the atrial relaxation phase. Right? And what is Y wave? What is Y descent? Right? Y descent is volume difference. When do you get a descent? Right? When do you get a descent when there is passive filling, as we discussed, then there is passive filling of right ventricle from right atrium. Okay, so this was the core concept and easy reproducibility. Now proceeding after the precedents, what we are going to discuss is about the differentials, how to clinch the diagnosis by using the concept of JVP. Okay, so let us discuss about the differentials and how to clinch the diagnosis using the different waveforms of JVP. Let's suppose you get a prominent, let's suppose we are going to first discuss about AC and V waves of JVP waveforms, right? We are going to discuss about these three waves. What does A wave indicate? As we discussed, A wave indicates atrial contraction. Let's suppose in the case you are being told that you get prominent A wave. What does it indicate? What does prominent A wave indicate? That indicates the pressure is more. That indicates the pressure in right atrium is more than expected, right? When does it happen? When does it happen? When the pressure in right atrium is already high at the time of atrial contraction. The pressure is already high and there is more rise in this waveform due to the pre-existing pressure. In which conditions do you get pre-existing pressure, high pressure in the right atrium? In pulmonary hypertension. When there is pulmonary hypertension, there is transmitted pressure which is more in right atrium. That is the reason in pulmonary hypertension already the pressure is high, and at the time of atrial contraction the pressure would increase to a larger extent. That's how you get a prominent A wave. In which other conditions do you get a prominent A wave? More rise in the condition where already the pressure is high. When there is any thrombus or mass, when there is any thrombus or mass in right atrium, in that condition the pre-existing pressure would be high. In that condition the pre-existing pressure would be high, right atrial thrombus or mass. Okay. In the third condition, most important, which helps you to clinch the diagnosis using the when you get the prominent A wave, is tricuspid. Imagine the stuff. When would the pressure in right atrium be more? When there is tricuspid valve stenosis. When there is stenosis at the interface between right atrium and right ventricle, obviously imagine the pressure, pre-existing pressure in right atrium would be more. That's why you get the prominent A wave at the time of atrial contraction, right? Am I making sense? Now, if at all in a case scenario there is absent A wave, what does that mean? Absent A wave, what is A wave? Atrial contraction. Absent A wave, absent of atrial contraction. When is the absence of atrial contraction found in a pathology? In atrial fibrillation. In atrial fibrillation, you don't get atrial contraction. That is the reason why you find absent A wave in atrial fibrillation. See, easily you can clinch the diagnosis, right? Now, what is Cannon A wave? What is the concept of Cannon A wave? Cannon A wave is when atrial contracts against the closed tricuspid valve. Atrial contracts against the closed tricuspid valve. So there is Cannon A waves, right? Much larger than expected rise, right? In which conditions? You just tell me, in which conditions would you get this such pathology? When there is atrial contraction against closed tricuspid, there must be some rhythm problem, right? There must be some rhythm problem due to which such pathology is occurring. When there is contraction in presence of closed tricuspid valve, right? So there is some rhythm problem. What rhythm problem would be there? Like complete AV block, right? In the condition of ventricular tachycardia also, you can get the Cannon A waves, right? So you can get the Cannon A waves in premature complexes, right? In premature complexes, premature atrial or junctional or ventricular complexes, right? In all those conditions, there are rhythm problems. So any rhythm problem, right? These three are the classical findings. In these three rhythm problems, what happens is there is atrial contraction against closed glottis. There is no, the rhythm after atrial contracts, ventricles contracts, the rhythm is lost in AV complete AV block and VTAC and all those premature complexes, right? Now, what is C wave? We discuss it. It is tricuspid valve bulge. How to remember it? Tricuspid valve, C waves. Tricuspid valve, C waves. Now, what is V wave? We want to discuss about V wave. V wave, as we discussed, is there is some problem. There is the volume difference, right? So it right atrial filling because it is a positive wave. Now, in which condition? Just imagine, you are going to answer me, right? In which condition do you get dominant V wave? Why do we get the V wave? Because of volume increase, volume of blood inside the closed chamber, that is increasing, right atrial filling. In which condition do you get volume? The volume of the blood inside right atrium would be more. Just imagine in the condition of tricuspid regurgitation. What happens is tricuspid regurgitation, the volume of blood in a closed chamber, that is right atrium, would increase. That is the reason the volume would be more than expected in V wave. That is the reason why you get dominant V waves. Am I making sense? So dominant V waves you get in tricuspid regurgitation. What happens in tricuspid stenosis? The pressure would be more. The pressure would be more over here. The reason is that tricuspid stenosis, the pressure would be more, so you get a prominent A wave in tricuspid stenosis, right? In tricuspid stenosis, you get a prominent A wave. In tricuspid stenosis, you get a prominent A wave, and in tricuspid regurgitation, you get a dominant V wave. Okay, am I making sense? So this was the concept of the three waves, the differentials, and how to clinch the diagnosis. See, it's very easy. Just imagine the stuff. Okay, so we have reached the last segment of our discussion of jugular venous pressure, and at the last we are going to discuss about the differentials of X descent and Y descent, and these are the two waves which forms one of the most important waveforms of JVP. The reason is they clinch the diagnosis. Of one of the most important conditions, few of the most important conditions of cardiology, and that is constrictive pericarditis and cardiac tamponade. Okay, so without further ado, let us discuss the differentials of these two descents, X descent and Y descent. What does X descent indicate? We already discussed. It indicates atrial relaxation, right? It indicates atrial relaxation. That is how we remember. That is how we easily reproduce the idea. That is atrial relaxation. Now, if in a case you find absent X wave, that does mean that atrial relaxation is not happening. In which condition you don't get atrial relaxation? You don't get atrial relaxation in tricuspid regurgitation. Let me explain. What happens in regurgitation? There is constant regurgitating fluid, and that is constantly regurgitating blood in the right atrium. That is the reason why it doesn't allow atrial to relax. That is why you don't get X descent in tricuspid regurgitation. So you can clinch the diagnosis of tricuspid regurgitation when you find absent X descent, right? The next is, when do you get rapid, sharp and deep X descent, right? When do you get rapid, sharp and deep X descent? What we are going to discuss about cardiac tamponade. I have shown that cardiac tamponade, there is blood collecting in the pericardial space. Now what happens in cardiac tamponade? If you remember the back stride, right? There is rising JVP. So what happens over here is, what happens in cardiac tamponade is, in the cycle when X descent waveform occurs, what happens is, as soon as the atrial relax, quickly, because the jugular venous pressure, because of the blood in pericardial space is much higher, so there is quick rapid filling of right atrium. That is the reason why you get a rapid X descent. What is X descent? Atrial relaxation. As soon as the atrial relaxes, there is rapid filling. So you get a rapid X descent, because as soon as the atrial relaxes, due to increase in JVP, due to increase in the blood in the pericardial space, it quickly, as soon as the atrial relaxes, the blood fills it up. So you get a rapid X descent in cardiac tamponade. Okay, am I making sense? Right? Now we are going to discuss about the Y descent. What is Y descent? There is some change in volume. What is it? Passive filling of right atrium, passive filling of right ventricle from right atrium. Okay. So let's suppose in the case you find a case where there is prolonged Y descent. In which condition you get prolonged Y descent? Where there is prolonged passive filling of right atrium to passive filling of right ventricle from right atrium. In which condition? Just imagine the stuff. Right atrium to right ventricle. There is prolonged passive filling. In which condition would you get? Imagine. Yes, tricuspid stenosis. Prolonged filling would occur in tricuspid stenosis. There is obstruction over here. There is stenosis over here. More time would be required for passive filling of right ventricle from right atrium. Am I making sense? Very easy, common sense, logic, right? Okay, so you get a prolonged Y descent in tricuspid stenosis. Now, one of the most important, where do you get the rapid Y descent? Okay, you must have heard about the condition constructive pericarditis. The chambers are non-compliant. So what happens is, in the early diastolic phase, due to non-compliancy which we see in constructive pericarditis of the chambers, you get the rapid filling of ventricles from atrium. That is the reason why you get rapid Y descent in constructive pericarditis. Now, am I making sense? Is it clear? Tricuspid stenosis prolonged due to it takes more time for passive filling. Now, constrictive pericarditis, what happens is there is non-compliant chamber. So in early diastolic phase, there is rapid filling. That is the reason why you get rapid Y descent. Now, in which condition do you get absent Y descent? Imagine the condition of cardiac tamponade. There is blood in the pericardial space. The pressure in right ventricle is so much that it doesn't allow the passive filling. Am I making sense? The passive filling of right ventricle from right atrium. That is the reason why it doesn't allow the passive filling of right atrium to right ventricle due to the high pressure in right ventricle due to the blood collecting in the pericardial space. So you don't get the Y descent in cardiac tamponade. Am I making sense? These two descents are very important because they clinch the diagnosis of the important conditions of cardiology, right? So in constrictive pericarditis, what do you get? You get a rapid Y descent. In cardiac tamponade, what do you get? You get a rapid X descent and absent Y descent, right? Other than this, I just forgot. In constrictive you get a rapid Y descent in constrictive pericarditis. At the same time, you get it in isolated severe tricuspid regurgitation, right? So these are the these two findings are very important. Just remember this stuff. Rapid Y, constrictive pericarditis, finished. Rapid X, cardiac tamponade, absent Y, cardiac tamponade. Okay, these are very important findings to clinch the diagnosis of the cardiac disease using the CVP. Okay, this was all about the discussion and the idea, core concept, and the easy reproducibility of the diagnosis of various cardiac conditions using the idea of JVP. Okay, I hope all of you all enjoyed. This is Dr. Mihir Tejura signing off, right? And if you have any doubts, you have any query, or you have any suggestions, you can contact me on the platforms provided in the screen. Thank you so much.